questions about anything from climate change. I'm so proud that Greenpeace has ranked me and Governor Jaisley as the best two candidates on climate and of all the campaign. Actually, there's so many people running, crying out loud. The 2020 elections don't stand for the year, it stands for the number of people running. 2020. So does that sound good, everybody? I'll tell you two stories about who I am, and then I will mingle. I'm not running away at all right?
All right.
So the first story, I've never told them this stuff before because my mom's here. I want you to know how she raised me. Back in the days, I was a city council person. I was running in a city that at that time was in really severe challenges. But I really believed in Newark. I believe there's nothing we couldn't do. But this story is a little bit apocryphal, but kind of really interesting because one day I was in the city council chambers having a fight with some of my council people. And this is the Newark, so when I say fought, I mean literally, we were in a headlock, grappling on the ground. And I actually had to fly out regularly to Stanford University because I was on the board of trustees there as a young man. I had this privilege, so I had to fly out, and I lost track of time. And my assistant runs in and says, "Hey, man, you're going to miss your flight. Actually, you know what? There's no way you can make that flight. It's impossible." Now, I looked at him immediately, and he knew he made a mistake because he used that word, impossible. And I put my hand on my hip and I said, "My mama raised me to believe no such thing as impossible." And he rolled his eyes, and I said, "Go get the car." And I ran down the steps of City Hall, dove into the car, sped off to the airport. I'm running for president now. I can't say we've broken the traffic laws. Well, we get to the airport, and I run up to the counter and weave through the lines. I say, "I need my ticket. I'm going on flight 2222 going to San Francisco." And she looks at me and goes, "Sir, that flight's boarding right now. It's all the way at gate 7,522. You're never going to make that gate." And she goes, "It's impossible." I put my hand on my head. And I said, "My mama told me ain't no such thing as impossible." And I don't care if you're Korean, if you're Irish, if you're black, sometimes you have to get ethnic on people. And black people have been making a way out of no way for a long time. That's what my grandmama taught me. And she rolls her eyes and says, "You can try." She hands me my ticket. So then I turned around and I started sprinting through the airport, running through like a man from a commercial we don't really talk about all the time. Some of you get that joke, okay? And I got to the gate just as the person had closed the door, they put the little cookies, and I scream at the person, "Stop!" And they turn around and they see this former tight end from Stanford University, and they go, "What's wrong, sir?" I go, "I'm on that plane." She goes, "No, you're not." I go, "What's on that plane?" "I'm on that plane." She goes, "Sir, we gave away all the seats." I go, "I gotta get on that plane." And she goes, "No, you can't. It's impossible." I put my hand on my hip. I said, "Ma'am, my mama told me ain't no such thing as impossible." And I said, "My grandmama told me that, black people making a way out of no way for a long time. And sometimes you gotta get a little spiritual." And so I looked at her and I said, "And my great-grandmother." We call her Big Mama. And she taught me that the Lord had taught her. It said it's a good book, I can make a way out of no way. I can do all things. And then she goes, "Stop. I don't want any air rage, okay? I'll tell you what, you're right, we have one seat left. If it's okay with you, it's in first class." I said, "That'll be okay." She opens the door, and now I'm walking towards the plane, walking like George Jefferson, because I just moved on up. And this is the first time I've ever flown first class. They have wide seats made for a tight end from Stanford University. And they offer you a drink before they come over. And I don't drink alcohol, but this was first class. So I said, "You know what? Give me sparkling water." And now they start pulling back, and the person gets on the loudspeaker and says, "I'd like to welcome everybody to flight 7842 going to Miami." I was first class. But I was going in the wrong direction. I want to tell you all something. We have the greatest nation on the planet Earth. And right now we have a president bragging about the wealth of the stock market and have tax cuts given to the wealthiest of the wealthy. A lot of folks are first class. But I have to tell you right now, if we keep this up, we're going to be heading in the wrong direction. We have got to start focusing on the things that my great-grandmother and my grandmother and my mother's generation got right. They used to invest in things like infrastructure. They used to invest in things like public education. We used to see each other as if we were part of a common cause. We saw each other as if we had a common purpose. Now don't get me wrong, the gardens of democracy have never been free of the weeds of hatred and bigotry and demagoguery, but you know what? We have always defined ourselves not by the darkness, but by the light that we brought. This is a nation that, under the most hostile conditions, has always brought the best of who we are, always brought the lights. Whether the challenges were foreign or domestic, whether it was the Nazis in Europe, we brought the light. Whether it was here at home during some of the most challenging times, we stood up to the demagogues, whether it was McCarthyism, Father Compton. Heck, there was an entire political party in this country that rose up with the purpose of being anti-immigration. Back then it was the Irish and the Italians. They were called the Know Nothing Party, using the same rhetoric our president uses now. We have always met that demagoguery and that hate by saying, no, we are one nation, common cause, common purpose. That's when we're at our best. If you go today, this day, the 4th of July, when we celebrate who we are, go look at what was signed here in early July 1776. It was literally a document that was treason. It was called the Declaration of Independence.
Yes, speak your truth.
You see, there are people like John Hancock. People want to know why he wrote his signature so big. He said, because I want the King of England to see that it was me that stood up for the name of liberty. And so we have to understand that that Declaration of Independence, it ended, at the end of it, if you read it, with the Declaration of Interdependence. Literally, our founders had this idea where they said, at the end of that, if this country is going to make it, if we're going to thrive, then we must, what does it say at the end? Mutually pledge. We must pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
True, true.
Yes.
Why am I running for president? It's because I worry right now that that ideal of sacred honor, that ideal of all of us being in this together, that idea that we have common cause and common purpose, that is being framed.
Yes.
More and more we see people falling into tribalism where we hate each other just because we vote differently or just because we have different beliefs. We're starting to believe that the forces tearing us apart are stronger than those holding us together. We're losing sight that the lines that divide us are not as strong as the ties that bind us. We have one nation under God, and we have to fight to put more indivisible back in it. Not just for Kumbaya's sake, but to continue the cause of justice. Because there's people hurting right now in America.
Truth.
I came in yesterday and spoke with a group of veterans. And to have them stand up and talk about veteran suicides. Female veterans who have to wait months just to get gynecological care from the VA. When you have veterans who have so much to offer, but they literally are not getting the most basic of support. Like we sing a song where we call ourselves Home of the Brave, and when the brave come home, 10% of our homeless are our veterans. We have a nation now where you have teachers in public schools right here in this city who have mounds of student debt, and they don't know how they're going to pay it. But yet, they still reach in their pocket and pay for things for the kids that they come in and need. Talk about patriotism. We have a challenge today that there are folks in my city and yours that don't take their diabetes medicine. They ration it because they can't afford it. We have a nation right now where there's somebody tonight not going out to watch the fireworks. They're working the second shift. But yet they still find themselves with more money at the end of their money than money at the end of their month. Nothing I said here is partisan. This all is about who we are and what we're going to stand for as a nation.
Yes, sir.
Look, I know there's a lot of people that want to make this election all about Donald Trump. And I'm not one of those folks. I want to tell you, I want to define our party as Democrats, not about what we're against, but by what we're for.
Yes.
And I'm telling you this. Election all about him. He wants us to fight him on his turf and his terms. Look, I walked into this town hall in Iowa. We were so excited, big crowd, and I'm getting ready to go up on the stage in my pregame mode. And some guy must have seen me in my pregame mode, and he walks up to me like the former tight end I was, All-American football player. The older I get, the better I was. And he puts his arm around me and he goes, I want you to punch Donald Trump in the face. And I look at him and I go, dude, that's a felony. Come on. We're not going to win this election by what we are against. We're not going to win this election by taking on the tactics. We have to, in this moral moment in our country, we have to call to the higher angels of our nation. We have to give something that people can be inspired by. We can't have fear-based politics, us versus them, zero-sum game politics. We as Democrats can't define ourselves by the end of being Republicans. We have to define ourselves by the end of uniting Americans. And so if you want to know, people ask you why I'm running for president, look, with all these people in this race, if you want somebody that's going to fight fire with fire, pick another candidate. Because I was a mayor, I ran a fire department, that's not a good strategy for putting out fire. I saw a poll where the number one thing they said Democrats wanted was just to beat Donald Trump. And I'm like, no, that's a floor, it's not a ceiling. That gets us out of a valley, it doesn't get us to the mountaintop. I'm running for president because people tell me that in this country they have the audacity to tell me that some of the things that we aspire for are impossible. Well, my mom told me that's not the case. She told me we can be a nation where everybody has health care. I believe we can be a nation where every child goes to a great public school, a future of learning. Every teacher is paid what they deserve. I believe that we can be a nation where someone who works a full-time job makes a living wage. I know we can be a country where every one of our seniors can retire with security and the dignity that their life of work deserves and merits them. I know that we can be a nation that honors our veterans, not just by paying them money to get them overseas to fight, but having the resources to invest in them when they get home. I believe we can end mass incarceration. Country that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're born innocent. I believe that every child in America should have clean air and clean water, and we could achieve that. I believe that at the time when the planet Earth is in peril, that we in this country can lead the way to meeting the climate crisis of the world. I believe all of these things. The second story, what I want to end with, why I believe it. Because when my mom told me there's no such thing as impossible, she wasn't telling me that just because of some opinion or some aspiration. She was telling me that because she told me stories of my family. That in the darkest of times, when there seemed often to be no hope, that Americans pulled together and made impossible things real. It was this summer 50 years ago. My mom, 50 years ago, she was just 6. I'm joking. 50 years ago, this summer, I was a baby, and my parents were trying to move to New Jersey from the South. And every time they would show up in the places in New Jersey with the best public schools, they tended to be white communities. And when my mom and my dad would show up, a real estate agent would come and see there was a black family, and they would lie to my parents. They'd be like, oh, this house is already sold, or oh, I'm sorry, the people pulled this house off the market. And my parents were in distress. And what did they find at that time of distress? They found other Americans who understood that patriotism is love of country. And you cannot love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women.
Yes.
And love is not a sentiment, it's not a feeling. Love says that if your kids don't have great public schools, then my kids are less off. And there's a group of Americans that have been in that town that said they heard about my parents in distress, they started out a sting operation. Literally, with some lawyers, they worked it out so that my parents would go look at a house, and if they were told it was sold, they would leave, and a white couple would come right behind them and find out the house was still for sale. And I'll tell you, on the house I grew up in, my parents were told it was sold, the white couple came and found it was still for sale, they put a bid on the house, the bid was accepted, papers were drawn up, And on the day of the closing of the real estate agent's office, the white couple didn't show up. My father did, and a lawyer. His lawyer. And they marched into the real estate agent's office. Now this should be the end of the story, but it's not. When they walked in, the real estate agent was so upset that he was caught, he stood up and punched my dad's lawyer in the face. Yes. And then, tragic as I know, Kathy, they sicked the dog on my dad. And every time my dad would tell the story as I was growing up, the dog would get bigger. Eventually my dad was like, boy, I had to fight a pack of wolves to get you in this house. I cannot tell you that the reason why we're here, all of us right now, is not because of the people who just read in history books. It's because of ordinary Americans who in moral moments in our country did extraordinary things for the cause of our nation, who stood up for love. Now when I got to the Senate, I thought I knew this story, but I only knew half of it. Because when I was in the Senate, I decided to do what a lot of senators do who have a high sense of self-regard. I decided to write a book. And if your name is Booker, it's a lot of pressure. And so I decided to go back and try to find the people from 50 years ago that helped my family move in. Now the head of the Fair Housing Council from 50 years ago, she was easy to find. Because at 92 years old, she is still head of the Fair Housing Council in New Jersey. Now she doesn't represent black families, she represents Muslim families and same-sex couples in America. Why? Because there is one justice. Justice has no color, no orientation, no religion. One justice, one people, one love.
Yes, sir.
One nation.
True.
And when I talked to her, she said, go find the lawyer that organized everything. He'll confirm all the stories. So I find him, and he tells me something that shocked me, and this is really what I want to end on. It shocked me, but it reaffirmed my values and the core of why I'm running for president. He says to me, the whole story, he confirmed it was not a pack of wolves, it was just a nice dog. But when I asked him why would a white guy in the 1960s go out of his way to help black families move in? At the time that he told me, he was just starting his business, he was barely making it, he was struggling. And this is a time of fears of white flight, and fears of real estate prices going down. Why would he stand up and take such risks and invest so much of his time to help black families? And he says, Cory, it's easy. I remember the moment I made the decision. And I'm like, the moment? And he goes, yeah, I remember the exact moment. And I'm like, okay, well, what was the moment? And he goes, it was March 7th, 1965. And I was like, what's going on? March 7th, 1965. And he goes, well, I was sitting down watching TV. And this was back, you all remember, we used to only have 3 channels in America. And in the 60s, the channels, they would go off at like 11 o'clock. Yeah. You know? And I said this to a high school here in Las Vegas, and one of the teenagers goes, oh my God, what did you guys do? And I'm like, look, we found things to do. That's why the birth rates were higher back then. My mom hates that joke. So he's watching TV, and because there's 3 channels, I looked up what he was watching. He was watching a movie called Judgment at Nuremberg. Most of America was watching this television show about the aftermath of the Holocaust. And then something incredible happens. It's historic, you can look this up. As Americans watching this movie, they break away from an ongoing movie to show a bridge in Alabama called the Edmund Pettus Bridge. You see, these marchers have started in Selma, and we're trying to march to Montgomery, and they get stopped on a bridge by Alabama state troopers that would not let them pass. And then the Alabama state troopers shoot tear gas at the marchers and storm into them, some of them on horseback, trampling people, others with billy clubs, smashing them over their heads. We now know this is Bloody Sunday. One of those marchers, always my hero, now he's my colleague. His name is John Lewis, yes. This regal man, he says to me very humbly, he goes, Cory, I shed a little bit of blood on that bridge. And I'm like, Congressman, no, you had your head smashed open. He was knocked unconscious, he was carried to safety. And so, what does a white man on a couch 1,000 miles away in New Jersey do when he's watching this? Does he say that's a shame, somebody should do something about this? No. Does he allow his inability to do everything to undermine his determination to do something? No, he stands up. And in this moral moment, he says, I am going to do something. This is my country. And so he thinks to himself that, oh my God, he thinks, I can't afford a plane ticket to Alabama. And he goes, I can't even close my business one day. What can I do? And then he suddenly realizes, he does the calculation, you know what? I can spare 1 hour a week of pro bono work. And he starts calling around and finds this young woman, now 92 years old, back 50 years ago, and she was just a young woman, and she's like, hallelujah, I need some help. And he says the two of them start organizing to help African American families. And he goes, she did 65, 66, 67. He goes, now we got it really going well. And 68, 69, I got other lawyers involved. And then he says, I remember the day that I get a case file handed to me of a young couple moving up from the South with two names on that case file, Cory. You know what the names were? I go, what? He goes, the names were Cory and Carolyn Booker, my parents. Woo! I am literally standing here right now as a United States Senator. I am literally standing here before you right now as a president, as a candidate for President of the United States.